Welcome to the Coaching Table. I'm Thomas Thompson, Executive Leadership Coach and Consultant with Lead Self, Lead Others. And the Coaching Table is a weekly conversation I've curated to help leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having, so we can dig deep and help you really lead yourself well. And when you lead yourself well, you're empowered to lead others well. Now, today's conversation revisits last week's conversation about being selfish. Last week I said to be the best leader you can be, sometimes that means doing what may feel like you're being selfish. But you're not. And of course, that's a little tongue-in-cheek. And what I'm really trying to get at here is, as a leader, you have to do the deep work, the hard work of self-care for yourself, so you're able to show up in every situation with your best self. A friend of mine likes to say that we reproduce not what we say or do, but who we are as leaders. And if that's true, then really working on who we are and taking the time to kind of do some things that may seem selfish are going to benefit your team in the long run. There's a reason why flight attendants will tell you when the oxygen masks drop, you do what? Put it on yourself first and then help those around you. And that's what we're getting at. You are no good to other people if you're not healthy yourself. And what I want to focus on today is this, that bringing your best to your leadership means knowing when to say no. I'm going to let you in on a secret that I've been holding on to for 29 years. Back in college, I was an English major. And so that meant that many of my friends would say, hey, Thomas, would you look at my paper? I got a turn for this class. Would you proof it? Would you edit it? I would always say, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And I'd take their paper. Now, here's the secret. I'd hold on to it for a day or two, and I wouldn't even look at it. And then I'd hand it back to them and say, hey, this looks pretty good, but you need to cut 20%. Really, 20%? Yeah, you need to cut 20% and then give it back to me and I'll edit that. And they'd go back and they'd do it. Now, I did that for two reasons. Number one, I'm kind of lazy. Why should I do all the work for them? Their cutting of 20% helped me edit a better version of their paper than their initial rough draft. But there's a second reason, and I don't even know at the time that I really understood what I was doing, but now looking back, I do. I knew, even back then, it's the stuff that we cut out. It's the stuff that we say no to that makes the stuff that we leave in, that makes the stuff we say yes to, all the better. In other words, the secret word of a leader is no. Now, there was a movie a few years ago with Jim Carrey called Yes Man, an entertaining movie about Jim was playing a character who decided, I'm going to say yes to every opportunity that came my way. It's a very entertaining movie, but it's a horrible self-leadership principle. Because leaders, especially those that are growing in their focus and growing in their ability and growing in their expertise, are going to have to say no more times than they say yes. Now, for those of you who are Christ followers, I get this. Listen, as Christ followers, we want to begin every day being open to the unexpected interruptions and things God might bring our way. We want to be open to those. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is learning the skill of saying no. Carey Nieuwhof says this, saying yes to something good now will mean saying no to something great later. We have to get focused on what is it I really need to be focused on as a leader. A few years ago, I realized my oldest son was a senior in high school and I only had a short amount of time. The window was closing on opportunity to have a relationship with him. And I realized that focusing on a weekly conversation with him was important. So I blocked out on my schedule every Thursday that we would have lunch together. I would either meet him somewhere, I'd pick him up at school and we'd eat cheap Mexican food, we'd talk. Sometimes these conversations lasted for an hour, sometimes they lasted 10 minutes. I wish I could say they were all powerfully moving conversations. They weren't, but that wasn't my goal. I wasn't going for quality conversations. I was just going for quantity conversations. I knew that having a weekly time to connect with him was important, or we could easily go weeks without talking. Now, having that yes on my schedule meant I had to say no to some things. I had to say no to some meetings that showed up. I had to say no to some invitations to do some things, but it was important to me to say no to those things. So I was really saying yes to what was important in my life. And that's what leaders have to do. Because here's something I want you to hear. The longer that you lead, and the longer that you lead with excellence, the more opportunities are going to come your way. And it will become more important than ever to say no to the good ones so you can say yes to the great ones. Just hear me out on that. When you're in your 20s, you're thinking, I would love for people to give me opportunities. They're coming. And you've got to be able to discern what you say no to. And so it really comes around to being able to say yes. So a great example of this, I believe, is Jesus Christ. Jesus' disciples were constantly confused why Jesus would say no to great opportunities. They'd be in a town, they'd be feeding people, or they'd be healing people. And the disciples would go, this is amazing, this is great. And Jesus would go, no, let's go on to the next town. And they were confused by that. His disciples couldn't understand. Well, what was happening was Jesus was saying no to good opportunities because he was clear on his mission, and he was saying yes to the great and the God opportunities in his life. So let me give you kind of a coaching table question this week that you can use to get at this. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? We can't say yes to everything. So if you were saying yes to some things that you value and prioritize in your life, you are saying no to some things. How are you doing that? I'd love for you to take that question into your personal prayer time or with your leadership coach, or even if you want to scroll down and start a conversation with me about how do you say no when it's hard to say no, and how do you discern what is a yes and what is a no. I'd love to do that. But here's the question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? I'll be back next week with another conversation that gets you thinking about how to lead yourself better. And until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.